Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Just a Few. My name is Patrick Antwine, and on this platform, I take the opportunity to provide biblical responses to questions from people just like you. As usual, if you have a question and you'd like for me to attempt an answer to your question, please feel free to submit that question via email. The email address is right on the screen. And that's the best way to contact me with your question, and I'll try to provide a response as soon as I can. Today's question is actually something that I'll have to answer in two parts. So if you're watching this video first, and then at some point in the future, and then you haven't seen the other one, there's another part to this video. The question, very detailed question, has to do with apparent contradictions in the Bible, in the New Testament, in particular with the gospel accounts of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So I'm only going to be handling one aspect of the question here, and even this, my response might take quite a bit of time. And so I'll have to leave the response to the second part of the question, although it's related, I'll leave that for another video response. So the question, this particular part of the question wants to know, do the differences in the gospel, should I be does the differences in the gospel make them unreliable? So let's leave it as do. So let me repeat, do the differences in the gospel make them unreliable? And the person wants to know and focus in particular on the issue of the resurrection. And I'm going to have to read a few different accounts, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because this particular contradiction or apparent contradiction focuses on how many angels were there at the empty tomb of Jesus. It seems as if there's a contradiction in the Gospels. Let me make a few statements first. That's why I know I'm going to take a few minutes with these, and then I'm jumping to these passages. So the differences in the accounts throughout the Gospel, not just with the resurrection story, do not invalidate them or make the accounts unreliable. Rather, the variants only serve to confirm the affirmation by Christians that the writers did not corroborate the accounts to do what is called in accounting, cook the books. They didn't fix this and say, no, you need to change this because that might contradict what I'm saying. They didn't. The fact that they left it just the way they wrote to their audiences means that they did not corroborate, that they stood by what their account and the details of the account entailed. If we had a word-for-word equivalence in all the accounts, one would immediately become suspicious and suggest editing took place to harmonize questionable events. If everything was just, looked, everything is in order. Very quickly, the accusation was they cooked the books. Also, if we had all the accounts with the exact narratives, there would be no need for four. One would have sufficed. The fact that we have four accounts with differences can be legitimately reconciled. Let me read it again. The fact that we have four accounts with differences which can be legitimately reconciled testifies to the authenticity of the individual documents. It does. Each was telling selected events from the many witnesses to the resurrection of Jesus. So it's different witnesses telling what they knew about the incident. So there are more things which the writers agree upon than on which they provide different details. They all agree that Jesus died at the hands of the Romans under the promptings of the Jewish leaders. They all agree that it was Sunday morning. They all agree it was early in the morning. Some ladies went to the tomb. They all agree the tomb was empty. They all agree there were angels there. They all agree that the women went and told the apostles. The apostles were in shock and disbelief. They didn't believe the woman because that was a natural response. They all agree on that. But there are some things in which, to us, it appears that they add certain details and this one leaves it out. That doesn't make it a contradiction, my friends. And I'll go on to explain that to you now. So differences in details do not necessarily indicate a contradiction or an error or a lie. Even in our modern court cases, the different witnesses do not all give identical details about every event. The more witnesses you have, providing evidence, the more likely you are to get a true picture of what actually took place. So let's look at the three witnesses here, because John doesn't mention anything about angels in his account, and he has his reason why. His focus was on the apostles, he himself being one of them, and their initial disbelief but eventual acceptance of the fact that Jesus rose. So he doesn't mention anything about the angels because the other apostles had already written about that. So now and my time is quickly going, let's read what Matthew says. I'm only going to read 6 verses from each of these 3 accounts and see if we can make sense of it or reconcile it. Now, after the Sabbath, I'm in Matthew 28. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week began to dawn, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door. One angel, and sat on it. His countenance was like lightning, and his clothing was as white as snow. And the guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men. None of the other writers did mention that detail about the guards. It doesn't mean that they didn't know about it. But the angel, singular, answered and said to the woman, do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come and see the place where the Lord lay. So he's going to take them inside. This angel, who Matthew says rolled back the stone and sat on the stone initially, went in to show them where Jesus' body was. What happened when they got on the inside is another story. So that's Matthew's account of one angel who was on the outside and took them inside to show them. Let's see what Mark says. Mark 16, first 6 verses. Now when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. Yeah, he says there was another woman there. Matthew doesn't mention Salome. Again, doesn't mean she wasn't there. And they bought spices that they might come and anoint Jesus' body. Very early in the morning, on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb when the sun had risen. And they said among themselves, who will roll away the stone from the door of the tomb for us? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, for it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw, this is what happened when they got into the tomb. Mark doesn't tell us anything about what happened outside. He just gets to the details about what happened on the inside. Entering the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in a long white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. And tells them, go and tell them. So the Mark says the one on the inside told them that. Seems like a contradiction. Let's see what Luke says. Luke chapter 24. Now on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they and certain other women, Luke doesn't even mention their name, but it was women, he says, came to the tomb bringing the spices which they had prepared, but they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Then they went in and did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. Verse 4, and it happened, as they were greatly perplexed about this, that behold, 2 men stood by them in shining garments. Then as they were afraid and bowed their faces to the earth, they, meaning both of these are not men, they are angels appearing in human form. They said to them, why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here but is risen. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee, and so on. And go ahead and tell his apostle. How do we reconcile that? Was it 1 angel or 2? Possibly there were more angels. Angels would appear and disappear at times. And that could be reconciled by simply, Matthew is indicating that when they got to the tomb, this angel who was possibly sitting on the stone that was used as a door to the tomb, spoke to them and told them Jesus is risen. Go and tell his disciples. Any normal human being will not just say, oh, okay, sure, I'll go tell them. No, they went in now to check, and the angel goes in there with them to show them he's not there. When they got in there, there's another angel there. This other angel says to them, he is not here, he is risen. As Mark says, the angel who was on the inside tells them the same thing. Go and tell his disciples. And that's why Luke could have written and said, both angels said to them, go and tell his disciples he is risen. So how many angels? At least 2. Matthew mentions the one on the outside. Mark mentions that when they got inside to check for themselves that this is what the angel told them is true, as he came and he showed them, there was another angel who again told them, just in case they didn't think that this one out there is really should be believed. And both told them, go tell his disciples. Is there a contradiction there? No, it could be harmonized. It could be reconciled. And let me just close maybe with a little illustration. Imagine there's this vehicle coming down a road and it's driving all over from side to side, obviously in a reckless manner, plows into a crowd of people, many are injured, and we have many witnesses to the incident. We go to the court now and one person is giving evidence and he says, I saw the vehicle careening from side to side and this guy got out of the vehicle and he was staggering, drunk, and everyone could have seen he was drunk, and he was the one who was driving, who was responsible for all of these injuries here to these people. A police officer comes now and he says, when I visited the scene, I found out four occupants were in the vehicle, and we tested them for the alcohol level. All 4 of them were drunk and they were all charged. Does that police officer's evidence contradict what the first person said, because he only mentioned there was a driver? No, it doesn't. The first witness was simply focusing on the driver who he sees was responsible for the carnage. The police officer, doing his due diligence, tested all of the occupants of the vehicle and he said there were 4 of them, not contradicting the first one, because the first one didn't say there was only one person in the vehicle, but he said there were 4 of them and they were all drunk, not just the driver. Evidence like that is not contradiction, it just sheds more light. If you get somebody else coming now from the insurance company and says the vehicle was a Toyota, you don't tell the first witness, how come you didn't say the vehicle was a Toyota? He just didn't want to share anything about that. And someone else may come along. If someone comes along and says, well, the vehicle that caused the carnage was a red Toyota car, and then someone comes and says it was a blue truck, now that's a contradiction. So understand what contradictions are and what contradictions are not. I've gone on much longer than I planned to, and I said there's still another part of the question. I want to leave that for another time. Thank you for your patience with me. Thank you for the question. The Christian faith is not above challenge. The Bible is open for you to give your perspectives on it. My name is Patrick Antoine. Look forward to providing response to the other part of the question. Until the next time, grace and peace.